Welcome into the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad. Hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and those who cover the NBA on a daily basis. The New Orleans Pelicans Podcast starts right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. And what a week it has been. We all know the phrase, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This team literally did exactly just that, because after that, they had to take on the Minnesota Timberwolves, at the time, the number one team in the Western Conference.
Top of the key, Z. Drives on McDaniels, pulls up off the glass and in!
Just
with
bully
the
ball.
left hand!
That is consequences and repercussions. You cannot guard him one-on-one in this game tonight.
Bounce feed to Ingram. Brandon. Pump fake. CJ. Right wing three.
Oh, that's it.
Dagger time.
Then it was off to the road, a place where they hadn't played very well, below 500 on this three-game road trip. A combined win-loss record, though, that was very favorable. Something like 13 wins to 52 losses. Who's keeping track? But you had to go win the games. So at Washington,
Pels up 122-104. Trey for another one left wing. Get in there! Yes! Ingram. 2 picks. Right free throw line. Extended jumper is good. And it is a 40-burger for Brandon Ingram.
and then in the Queen City against Charlotte.
Back to the dotted line, hook it to McCollum, right wing three. Got the roll, front iron, glass, and down. McCollum's third three of the quarter. Up 5, 95 seconds left. Jonas looking for a cutter. Got Herb down low. Great pass, JV. Lay in with a left hand, Herb Jones. Timeout, Steve Clifford. Jonas Valanciunas is literally doing it all.
Even Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs couldn't derail the road train.
Hop it to Murphy. Shot clock at 5. Trey, kick it right corner. Naji for 3. Got it again. Corner 3, Naj. Up the floor. Steal Z. Naji, whip it to Jose. Left wing 3. Got it at the buzzer with 1.7 seconds left. What a flurry by the Pels here. 3-ball McCollum. Left wing and down. 6 for 6. For Christian James McCollum, 27 points, leads all scores. Johnson in the rim, no. Tipped up, no. Back tapped out, taken by Naji. Give it to CJ again, why not? Marshall weaves through traffic. Get it to Dyson. Fake a 3. Now Jonas up top, straight away 3. Why not? Why not? 19 made threes for the Pels. Outlet to Naji. Marshall, leave it for Jose. Right wing 3. That is a 21st made 3 for the Pels that just tied our franchise record. 2:45 to go. Roll that clock. Hawkins up top for 3. Get in there. Franchise record. Jordan Hawkins. First made 3 since we were in Chicago. That was a blue moon ago. And now the Pels have 22 made 3s in this game. Record time.
3 straight wins on the road at Minnesota. That is a 4-game win streak for the Pelicans. Head Coach Willie Green.
The guys are buying into what we're asking them to do. We're staying with it. We're trusting it. Showing them the pictures. When we watch our film work, we're getting on the floor and we're going over it over and over again and expressing to them how important it is to play with force, play with pace, to continue to share the ball, just make the simple plays over and over again. And I thought B.I. set the tone early in the game for us.
Zion Williamson.
We're winning. Winning cures everything.
C.J. McCollum.
Yeah, that's what good teams do. They win the games they're supposed to win. They're competitive in the other games. Outside of that Laker game that we had, I think we've been playing really well the last month or so of the season. And it's about stacking good days, really taking advantage of our practices when we can have them, and then going out there and executing our game plan and living with the results.
Now can they continue that as we welcome in Jim Eichenhofer, NewOrleansPelicans.com. Jim, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing really well, Gus. How about yourself?
Hey, you know what? When you get 4 straight wins, 3 on the road, everything's beautiful. How nice was it on Sunday? Saints take care of business on one side there of the street, and then we're in the studio. It's conductor Chris and I and the Graph. We're listening to the Pels absolutely play solid basketball, taking care of their business. Jim, you got to like how they're playing right now.
Yes, you do. It's not easy to top an 18-point win in an NFL game, but the Pelicans won by 36, so they were able to do that. Yeah, I feel like a lot of things are coming together right now. I mean, you mentioned the game in Las Vegas. They haven't lost since then. They seem to be playing really well. It's no coincidence that they, right before the Las Vegas game, they had gotten to the point where roster-wise they were closer to full strength. And I feel like now you're really starting to see what this team is capable of when they're still not at 100% full strength, but they're as close as they've been the entire season, having Trey Murphy back, having CJ back, having a couple other guys that came back in November. So really exciting to see the way that they've been playing lately, and hoping that they can continue to do that. Have some more teams coming up that are, under 500 between now and the end of December. Starting with the game Tuesday against Memphis.
Jim, we always try to look at why we view certain things the way we do. And I think the reason why we can get excited about this team and we can say, well, this is different, is instances where, let's just look at this 4-game win streak. If a member of the big three doesn't play or isn't having a big game or has a rough game, normally in the past, in most teams in the NBA, struggle to get that win, even if it's against a team that doesn't have as many wins or not. When you look at these 4 wins, it's almost a different leader in points. The bench either is there or it's not. It's different people on the bench. And it almost feels like even when Brandon Ingram got 40, it was within the offense. We talked about this. It wasn't like an ISO guy, give me the ball to do that. I think that's what really has stood out to me in this 4-game win streak. It's kind of almost a pick your poison thing.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the ball movement, I think, has been extremely good. They have 6 guys averaging at least 3 assists during this 4-game winning streak, so that kind of gives you one example of the way that they've been able to move the ball around. They have 3 guys that have averaged over 20 points. No surprise there that I'm talking about B.I., CJ, and Zion. To your point about if one guy doesn't play or if a guy has an off game, I mean, Zion didn't play in the Washington game. B.I. had a rough game against Charlotte Friday night. I think he had 9 turnovers.
And 8 points, which never happens.
Right, and you're still able to win those games. And I thought it was interesting, too, that in Sunday's game, they set a franchise record with 22 3-pointers. And if you didn't know anything about how the game went and told somebody, okay, they set a team record, you would think that, okay, Trey must have made 8 3-pointers, 10 3-pointers. He only had 2. So they were able to break the history of the franchise 21 years record for most threes in a game, and it wasn't with maybe the guy that's the most dangerous. He was the one that last season when they had these huge 3-point games, we were talking about this with Graff earlier, Trey was the guy that had 9 or 10 threes in that Clippers game, for example. So just the ability to get contributions from so many different guys, you're definitely seeing, why a lot of people going into this season, and even I think recently as well, have been like, this Pelicans team is somebody to watch, somebody that maybe down the road you're not going to want to play.
And I think one of the other things, too, when you talk about the franchise record, 22 threes, right? Brandon hit some early on, and CJ got hot at a certain time. You saw that in this road trip, too, where, and again, this is a difference, where in seasons past, a player of the big three or a big member of the bench would have to have a game where he was dominant, right? I mean, you needed CJ scoring in the first, second, third, and fourth. B.I. needed to start from the beginning. Right. It's crazy. I didn't even realize Brandon was getting close to 40 until I'm starting, I'm cutting some highlights in between. 40, yeah. Then I'm like, there's Todd, is 31. He's 30. I'm like, wow, this guy's almost 40. Because that's my point. It just kind of seemed to flow with the offense. One of the things I want to touch on, though, I feel like the month of November was the month of Herb, right? We talked about how important he was, almost like he could be the MVP of this team. Because nationally, and I think people outside of here probably go, it's Zion, it's Brandon Ingram, and CJ McCollum. But I think the Pels are where they are this year because of what Herb did in November, right? With injuries or whatever, how key he was.
Yeah.
Can I make the statement that since December 1st, where would this team be without Jonas Valanciunas? Goodness gracious. 12 rebounds, 10 rebounds, 11 rebounds at the Laker game 3. 13 rebounds, 18 rebounds, 13 rebounds, 15 rebounds on Sunday. You look at the points, all double digits, 24, 15, 18, Laker game 9, 14, 16, 29, 15. he has had double-doubles in every game in the month of December. Think about that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this towards the end of the game yesterday that I tweeted, it's just another ho-hum, just another 15 and 15 for Jonas. I mean, that's just the way he's been. He's averaged 18.5 points and 14.8 rebounds during the 4-game winning streak. Also a steal, I think he's averaging over a block per game as well during this run. I mean, he's been the rock. He's been the guy that, not even just statistically when you go through the numbers that you just did, where you say this guy has shown up every single night, but also just in the game, he's the foundation because it seems like you can go to him whenever you need baskets. If you've had 3 or 4 bad possessions in a row, you work it down to him, you get yourself a nice little post up, a nice little hook shot, something where he's going to be at the basket, and it's a very high percentage that it's going to go in. He's also shot 61% from the field during this streak. So again, just somebody that's just been so reliable throughout, like you said, the entire month of December, but especially lately.
It's crazy because last week we had a great visit with Jason Smith, right? And he's like, in today's game, I don't know if I can play. I love being able to bang and all that and get in there and on the block and things of that nature. And today's kind of bigs have been closer towards the arc. And look, Jonas had some key threes in this road trip. I mean, it's not many, but it's a key 3, right? It'll continues it. But I found myself even in post game on Sunday talking to Graff about it. You forget, and it is the advantage you have. As you just said, there's a run on the other side. And he did it in this road trip, right? There was a run, boom, boom, back-to-back 4 points by Jonas, a little baby hook or whatever. We saw it against Sacramento, things like the ability to have that. Because, Jim, I almost feel it's like in the NFL where teams geared up to play these passing offenses and the team that can run the football because you don't do it that much. I don't know how many teams are built to actually defend a big that can score, can shoot a midi, can shoot a 3. Right. Jonas can go to the glass. And I think it's an advantage right now for the Pels that they can play low, they can play high, they can space it. And I think it's a real big advantage. I mean, again, other than the Laker game, every game in December is a double-double.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, I think low post defense is less of a priority for teams across the NBA because teams don't run low post offense. They don't dump it down inside. So it becomes less and less of a thing that you have to worry about. So I do think that teams don't prioritize that anymore. So that he is a big advantage. And I guess I could say that literally and figuratively, the way that he can control the paint. Another thing too, along the same lines of what you were talking about, this is a human nature thing, but I think it's more important on the road to be able to have something that you can rely on and go to that you can just count on than it is at home, because on the road sometimes the crowd gets into the game, you're losing momentum, maybe you have a lead and all of a sudden it's kind of going away and you were up 15, now you're up 4.
Right.
And those are the moments when, especially on the road, where you really need something that you can bank on, and I think he's come through repeatedly with that over this recent stretch where they've been, you discussed this in the open, they've been so much better on the road lately than they were for the stretch of November, especially when CJ was out.
I think the other thing that stood out to me yesterday too is a couple quick whistles, right? And we talked about it in pregame. I was like, I think he's key because we've never seen Victor Wembanyama. I don't know what the matchups is. I don't know who guards him. I don't know, can Jonas, and I did say in the pregame, I think Jonas could be a guy that either maybe gets him in trouble because he's physical, or does he get in foul trouble? And sure enough, Jimmy did. Now, he finished with 3 personal fouls, but he got 2 quick in the first half and kind of took him out of the first half. That's why it's remarkable. The guy still had 15 boards, 15 points, 3 assists, a block, and a steal in just 23 minutes of action, but it goes back to the start of this conversation. He wasn't dominant. He couldn't be dominant. He went on the court that much. Everybody else carried it. B.I., CJ, the bench with Trey. This team can pick up if some things don't go according to plan. And I think that's a difference, despite the win-loss record, that's compared to last year as we approach the end of this calendar year. I do think this is a better team.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right. I mean, maybe it doesn't look like it record-wise because they started off the season 4-6, but they're 12-5 in the last 17 games since then. And also, too, going back to Jonas again, another reason why his numbers are so impressive is he doesn't play 35, 38 minutes a game. He's doing a lot of the stuff that he's doing. Like you said, he had 20-something minutes yesterday. He's averaged 32, which he actually led the team in minutes last week, which is unusual for him. But a lot of the time, he's still able to get double-doubles, even though he's not on the court the entire game.
Yeah, CJ McCollum said after the game yesterday, he said he probably needs a week rest to get his body going.
Yeah.
But it is something about that this team sees who's working or who's cooking, I guess, and let those guys eat. Look, we talk about this all the time, and I'm going to ask you some of the other things that stood out to you there in this win streak, but it is that unselfishness because, Jim, it's something for us to talk about, and it's something for us to wish and to want, and coaches would like it to be, or players feel that it would be great to do. There is a legit feel, though, in this team. They legitimately don't care about the success, whether or not it's them or not. They celebrate other success on given nights, and I think it's starting to hit, Jim. You're starting to see it, whereas Willie says, hey, it's consistency. Every night we need to bring that. And you heard Jose say at the beginning of this road trip, hey, we have to go out there and take care of our business and stuff.
Sure.
Doesn't it feel like they're starting to totally buy in that specific element?
Yeah, one of the things that Zion said after the game yesterday when he was asked about kind of the chemistry building and them understanding the offensive system, he said he 1,000% agrees with the idea that all of this stuff is kind of snowballing. To me, what happens a lot of times in basketball is when you lose games, a lot of times people try to do things on their own because they say, we're not winning, and it's my responsibility to carry us or play better or produce more points, and a lot of times that becomes a negative effect. I think the opposite is true where as they win more games and a lot of the especially the main players look around and say, I don't have to score 30 points for us to win. I can be fine scoring 15 points, maybe taking a fewer shots than I do on an average night, and it's cool because the team is winning. So I think that kind of builds upon itself as well, the fact that I think everyone is seeing, no matter who you're talking about, whether it's B.I., CJ, Zion, Trey Murphy, they know that they don't have to go into any game saying, like, if I don't play well, we're going to lose. So I think that helps as well, just to understand, okay, Brandon had it going in Washington, had 40 points. Jonas has it going here some nights. CJ was great, like you mentioned, in the second half yesterday. It's so much easier when you're seeing the positive team results to get into that mode of everyone's unselfish and everyone knows that, it's not about what I can do and I don't have to be great for us to win games. I mean, it's been so evident lately to me that the amount of talent that this team has overall is enough to win, and you don't need anybody to try to do more than what is a reasonable ask of them.
Yeah, you had one game where you had 50-plus points from the bench. That's the point, is that all that can happen. And I do think, to your point, when you don't have that pressure to feel like you have to do those things, the only pressure is to make the right play.
Yes.
And when everybody eats, everybody is happy. You mentioned what Zion had to say. It's only 4 seconds. This is what he had to say.
1,000%. More on the court together, more chemistry we build.
So there you go. I like hearing 1,000% as well. That's good. Anything else stand out to you, man?
Yeah, this is one thing I mentioned before, maybe early in the game Sunday, was just the three-point shooting that the Pelicans are getting off the bench. We mentioned the array of offensive weapons that this team has in the way that they can generate enough points without needing big games from their main guys. I think one of the big positive early season developments has just been the way that we knew Trey Murphy is an elite three-point shooter, but Naji Marshall and Jose Alvarado have been off to really good starts from three-point range as well. And that was another reason why they set the team record yesterday, is that both Naji and Jose, I think they both had 2 or 3 three-pointers made. So that has been a real big help lately, just the way that the bench has played. We look at Naji and Jose a lot of times as energy guys and defense-first guys, which they are, but they've also been supplying that offense and that perimeter threat as well. So another reason why you can just be confident moving the ball around and trying to work for open shots, because these guys, when you have 3 guys coming off the bench, they're all shooting over 40% on the season from 3. That is a huge advantage that you have against a lot of teams.
Yeah, no doubt. And I do think, look, the three-point shot, we talk about it all the time. It is absolutely key. If you can't knock those down, they're not. Look, there was also another game in this road trip where you had that as well. Slow start by the Pels behind the arc, and then eventually it got going. And again, it just goes to it. It can come from anywhere, really, from that aspect of it. So, look, obviously, one of the things that I wrapped up with Todd yesterday in the postgame is you don't want to sit there and say anything's taken for granted. You don't. But tomorrow you take on Memphis. We don't know if we're going to see Jean Morant. He's available to play his first game after being suspended for 25 games to start the season. Now, does he play tomorrow, get his feet wet, or does he wait for the home game that's coming up on Thursday as well, a day later? So regardless, Memphis, I don't feel is the same team, obviously, not only just with him, but what we saw. I keep thinking Dylan Brooks is as key to me like Draymond Green is with the Warriors, kind of gave him that attitude, and they're missing a lot of bigs as well. So I would say, look, that's a game here at home before you go back out to Cleveland. It'd be great to go get Cleveland. Doesn't feel like the Cavs team from a year ago. Doesn't mean that it's not a hard game. I'm just saying that you feel that. And then, Jim, you have a 5-game homestand. Willie Green always says, if you can take care of the blender and you win most of your home games, you're going to get in the postseason. You're going to do all those things. I kind of feel like going into the month of January, which is where I think is the do or die month in terms of deciding, hey, are we making moves? Are we not making moves? How do we feel, right? That kind of feels like a key stretch for me. They've won 4 in a row. If they can win, 5 of the next 7, with 5 being at home, 6 being at home of the next 7 games, Jim, look, you entered the game yesterday, 2 games from second, so, you can really move. I guess what I'm saying is take care of your business here at home. You can get the crowd kind of going, just kind of feels like you start that new year so different than you did last year.
Definitely. At this point in the season, I don't try to get too preoccupied with the exact spot in the standings because, as we know, it can change. You could not play a game for 2 or 3 days and move up a couple spots or move back a couple spots, but the Pelicans, I think it is interesting to note that the Pelicans are now 7th in the West. They were kind of 9th or 10th for a few days or for a pretty long stretch. They're 7th in the West, and against the top 6 teams, they're 8-4. So part of that is they're 3-0 against Sacramento, which is a team that's in the top 6. They have a win against Minnesota, Dallas. So that part of the season is looking, like you said, the part coming up to me is really interesting. Now, this week, we don't know, like you said, we don't know if John Morant's going to play. If I was the Grizzlies, obviously for the Pelicans, it's probably better if he doesn't play.
Right.
But if I'm the Grizzlies, I'm like, he's already missed 25 games, and we're, 5, 6, 7 games out of the play-in.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, I know maybe you want to debut at home, but we really need you to be on the court. So that'll be interesting to see whether he plays or not. I'm sure TNT will not be pleased if he doesn't play because I'm sure that was the
no doubt
number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 reason that game was scheduled as TNT.
Ja versus Zion.
Yeah. And then Thursday, the thing that's interesting about the Cavs is they don't have Darius Garland and they don't have Evan Mobley. Both of those guys are going to be out for a while now. That's to me the number one reason why they don't look like the team that finished as a 4 seed last year.
They're good.
They had a really good year last year.
Yeah.
And they have other good players. Donovan Mitchell obviously at the top of the list, but he has to do so much with the guys that they have available right now. So again, a road game. So I think the Cavs are probably much better at home than on the road. So that won't be easy. And then the Rockets on Saturday. That'll be another interesting game. I feel like the Pelicans have some payback to give from that in-season tournament game that was probably maybe the most frustrating loss that New Orleans has had this year. But in general, you're right. This stretch sets up to where you've moved up a couple spots in the standings. If you do really well over these next couple weeks, the chances are you'll be in the top 6 and you can move up even further. So I'm really looking forward to this stretch of home games.
I'm with you. We'll look at it. It'll be fun to see 1 through 6. What I mean, especially even more, is I like right now, it's 4.5 game separation from the play-in spot. Mm-hmm. I know that's, hey, you're still in, you can still but we all know what the goal is here. You want to at least be top 6. That way you don't have to worry about that. You're in the first round. Look, it is what it is. Look, right now, if the season ended, it's Dallas, and it might switch. But you mentioned T-Wolves, Thunder, Maverick, Nuggets, Kings, Clippers, all above you, you've beaten them all. We've seen that in there. I don't feel other than right now, Minnesota just presents a tough matchup. They just are. They're really good. That is a team that I can tell you right now that's going to go into the final 2 minutes or you're going to get blown out. I mean, they're just really good.
Yeah.
And look, they've only lost 5 games for a reason, so they're solid. Thunder have lost 8. Dallas has lost 9. Denver's lost 10. Kings have lost 9. Clippers have lost 10. Pelicans have lost 11. So it just kind of gives you an idea where they're going. But I love that. Look, Golden State, they're 12-14 in 11th spot, 8 games from the lead, and the Pels are 4.5. So you got a 4.5 game lead from the play, and I know it's early and all that, but the further I can separate myself from 10,
100%,
because it's so different than last year. Like, well, you're hanging around 10. Can you get to 10? Just I want that to sort of be like when Tulane football, went from, hey, 6 wins is great to awesome, we're bowl eligible. It's October. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
Because that is the next step, Jim, that this franchise needs to take, right? Where the play-in's like, if we're talking about it, it means you've lost some players to season-ending injuries. That's where we need to get to, right? Where we're not even looking at that. It's, hey, we're trying to get that top 4 seed. Look, Larry Nance said it to me on Media Day. That is the goal. They want to host a first-round series. So you want to do that? That's what I'm saying. Stretch like this, winning on the road against those teams. That's why it's key, because you don't want them to come back and haunt you.
I agree. I mean, I think everyone that has followed this team over the last 2 years can wholeheartedly be with you on that, as far as let's get rid of the stress of, okay, where are they in the top 10? Who's in 11th place? When you mention, a team like Golden State is 11th, it makes you feel even more like, okay, can we get this cushion up to a number that is so high that it's insurmountable? But yeah, you're right. CJ McCollum also has talked about this lately. You mentioned Larry on Media Day. CJ's mentioned, if you can win more games on the road, play at least 500, beat the teams that you should beat, whether it's home or away, now you have a chance to not only be top 6, but be a top 4 seed and start the playoffs at home, which is something the Pelicans haven't done, I think, since 2008. So, this stretch coming up. I mentioned the Houston game. They play Memphis again on the second game of the homestand. Then they play Utah. Then they have the Lakers on New Year's Eve, and then they have Brooklyn. So it's kind of an interesting collection of some teams that are really struggling. It's kind of every tier of the NBA of this homestand. But, I mean, the way that they've been playing on the road, and even probably more so the way they played at home, I think the confidence is definitely building that they can do really well no matter where they play, but especially in the Smoothie King Center with the home court advantage that they've been building.
Calendar year ends like this. We'll take on Memphis tomorrow night, at Cleveland on Thursday, and that 5-game homestands like this. Saturday, it's Houston. Tuesday, Memphis again. We'll be back here. It's a little strange, but he will. Thursday the 28th, Utah. Revenge on New Year's Eve. The Lakers, 6 p.m.
Yeah, actually, when you started to say revenge, I thought you were talking about Utah, because there's Utah revenge. There's a lot of revenge. This is a vengeance week or vengeance week.
You want to call it the revenge tour?
Yes,
homestand,
definitely.
the revenge homestand. That's fine with me. It works. And then you will close out the homestand against Brooklyn, a team we haven't seen this season, on January 2nd. So that's your 5-game homestand and your 2 games this week. So again, I'm with you. Let's have a little revenge. Let's have a little fun with these games. Lots of them are Western Conference games, and when it comes to tiebreaker, that's what's important and key here as well. All right, final segment, Jim. It's always time for the player to watch, or player poll, or player that's done well. This is easy. You absolutely picked this player, so you didn't have to do any work this week.
Yeah, the player. So let's start first, I guess, with the player of the week. The player of the week poll, which is up right now, I gave it a 24-hour poll because the Pelicans don't play until Tuesday.
Okay.
So why not? Let's give people time to vote.
It's over.
Jonas Valanciunas, as we record, has 63% of the votes. Yeah. And that is impressive for several reasons. One of them is that there's so many other players that had really good weeks, but yet I think the fans recognize and understand that this guy has been so valuable that he's by far the front runner. There were more than 4 guys that could have been player of the week candidates. Trey Murphy didn't even make the list.
Wow.
Jose and Naji, I think, and I might be forgetting somebody else, but right now, Ingram, McCollum, Zion all have about 10 to 15% of the votes. So those guys all averaged between 23 and 24 points per game, but Jonas 14.8 rebounds, dominating the poll. So he's likely going to be the player of the week that, as voted by fans on X. Credit to Jonas too. This will be the first time that he wins that award. I thought he had won it previously, but he may have finished second one of these weeks. But the good news, more good news to our theme earlier in the podcast. Zion's won it twice. CJ's won it once. Herb's won it once. Ingram's won it once. And now Mr. Valanciunas looks like he'll be getting his first Player of the Week award as well.
And I can't wait to see that video because people listening right now, the award is a glossy black and white Jim Eichenhofer kind of eyebrow. Right? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Jonas can afford a lot of different things, but nowhere can you get that unless you become the Player of the Week.
And I'm hoping, knowing Jonas the way I do, I'm hoping he'll be the first player that doesn't immediately throw it in the trash the way that some of the others have.
Immediately, huh? You think you want him just at least wait.
Or he might wait until I leave the room and then do it. So he's the Player of the Week most likely. It's looking like he's the runaway winner. The players to watch. So last week my player to watch was CJ McCollum. That turned out to be a pretty good pick because he averaged 23 points a game. He shot 59% from three-point range, 53% from the field. So, I'd like to talk about 50, 40, 90 guys. He was a 50, 50, 100 guy. He made all of his free throws. He was 10 for 10 from the line. So, good selection for CJ. And kind of continuing the theme of players who have returned from injury who are keep trying to ramp up to 100%. My player to watch for week 9 is Jose Alvarado. Kind of the same deal. It was funny. I was laughing. He did a post-game interview with Graff. I think it was after the Charlotte game because he had 8 rebounds in that game, which was tied to career high. I was laughing because Jose was so blunt in his assessment of himself.
Right.
He said, "I've been playing terrible. I've been part of why I wanted to hit the boards was because I wanted to contribute in some way." He talked about how he's missed a lot of floaters. He's missed a lot of, some open shots and stuff like that. But I do think that what we saw from Jose over the last few games, he's starting to look more and more like the guy that we know from his first 2 years, where he's really disruptive defensively and his three-point shooting. I mentioned earlier that he's over 40% from three. Yeah. He shot 43% from three in the 4 games that he played last week. So he's my guy to watch. The matchups this week, he might get a chance to disrupt and hound and get in Ja Morant's face in the game Tuesday. And then Thursday, Donovan Mitchell is a important guard for Cleveland. And then Houston has Fred VanVleet at point guard. So some chances for Jose to bring his particular brand of end-to-end 94-foot defense to the court. So that's my reason for picking Jose. Some of the matchups in it, as well as I feel like he's a guy to keep an eye on, that he looks like he's getting closer and closer to 100% after he's only been back on the court for roughly a month right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's see what happens. There should be some interesting matchups here. It's hard to believe that we only have 2 more weeks left in the month of December, and then we're off and running until January. And in the meantime, Pels have that 4-game win streak. Let's see if they can continue it. 1 home, 1 road. That road game being Thursday, as you mentioned, against Cleveland. So we'll see what happens on that next podcast. We'll talk hopefully about a 5th straight win. Again, I'm curious to see, even if Ja plays tomorrow, Jim, to your point with Jose, we saw it with Trey. They both admitted that first game back, it takes a little bit. Ja's incredible. Mm-hmm. But I can't see 35 minutes of Ja greatness.
Right.
He's gonna get his points. He's gonna get his dunk. He'll light up the 3. But I think the minutes and all of that. I mean, he hasn't played basketball. And I'm talking about at that level of that speed. Mm-hmm. You can run all you want at practice. And even I think until last week, you really weren't allowed to be doing all of that stuff. So I really don't know the particulars. Yeah. But the point is, he hasn't played a basketball game. It's December 18th today. Tomorrow, game day, will be December 19th. It's going to take him a bit. Now, by the time we see him again next week on Thursday, we'll see. He's probably going to have a little bit more legs. But in the meantime, I think it's a good opportunity to maybe pick that up tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think the goal is going to be for the Pelicans to, nationally and understandably so, the big story is going to be Ja Morant making his comeback.
That's a good point.
Playing Tuesday night. The game's on TNT. The goal, though, is for, at the end of the night, for people to say that, we're going to talk a little bit about Ja and whatever he did in his first game.
How about this Pelicans team?
But, man, this Pelicans team has won 5 in a row and is playing some really good basketball. So that's what I think is the hope for what happens tomorrow on Tuesday.
And let's be honest. I know you and I aren't the only one thinking about it. The last time they were on TNT, we know what happened.
Yeah.
There's no way players don't know that, don't think like that.
Right.
And the last thing they want is Shaq, Kenny, and Charles. Here we go again, kind of a thing. I'm just, that's true, right? I mean, come on. That adds something to it because 6:30 tomorrow, national audience is going to see this team that the last time they were, this team for real or not? Or, then that narrative becomes, well, they can only beat bad teams or whatever. Or here we go again. You got to do that. I think tomorrow is key for a couple of reasons.
It's funny, too, because I was watching NBA TV in some of their recap of the game against the Spurs. And even in that highlight reel, they mentioned the game in Las Vegas. So I feel like it's something that...
I think it's haunting them, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It really is.
I looked at Chris yesterday. I'm like, can we stop mentioning that game anymore? Because really...
And I think the only way to totally put that in the rearview mirror and totally put that in the... It's probably not going to completely disappear from people's minds, but put it somewhere deep in the back of their head somewhere is to just keep winning games. And hopefully you'll look back at it and say that was a turning point instead of... humbling, embarrassing, however way you want to describe it and however the Pelicans themselves describe that game. They just need to keep winning games so that the Lakers becomes, hey, maybe this was the galvanizing moment of the season.
Because, no one brings this up. Pelicans 4-0, right? Since Vegas. The Lakers are 2-2. They've lost 2 games, one being to the Spurs, the other being to Dallas. Right. No one's talking about that, though, right?
And the Pelicans passed them in the standings as well.
Oh, did they?
It's funny. I do think that I was talking to somebody the other day who's kind of a casual-ish fan, and I said, the Lakers lost to the Spurs on Friday, and they were like, what? And I think that a lot of people are in this boat that they would be shocked to see the standings, and because you're basing everything on one game, and it's like, well, the Pelicans are actually ahead of them now in the standings, and I think that is shocking to people, but does it mean much to be a little bit ahead of them in mid-December? No. But you want to just keep adding to that gap, and hopefully they can get further and further ahead of the Lakers so that what happened on December 7th seems even more like an aberration than it does now.
But there's one thing that we know about them, and especially him. The guy shows up and plays when the lights are big, and that's the difference, right? That's that next step. They're 15-11 going into tonight's game at home hosting the Knicks. Pels will play tomorrow. Jim Eichenhofer, Pelicans.com. As always, we could do this for another hour and a half, but you're giving me the look of, dude, let's go. I got things to do today, including practice for the Pels to get in there. They always talk about how important practice is. So if you want to see that, you want to get a report, how can people do that?
Yeah, I'll have a practice report this afternoon. Probably going to focus as much as possible just on, why are they playing so well? What have they done well during this 4-game stretch? They actually have an opportunity to practice a lot this week because the back-to-backs have finally dried up, at least temporarily. So, looking forward to that and discussing the Memphis game as well.
All right, sounds good. As always, man, appreciate it. Jim_Eichenhofer is the way to follow and exit on Twitter. And we thank you, as always, for tuning us in on the New Orleans Pelicans podcast. We'll see you again on Wednesday, the 20th of December. Thanks for tuning us in, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, or you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time right here on the New Orleans Pelicans podcast.